PGSync team. Welcome, sir. How are you today?
Hello, hi, I'm good.
Great. Just so everyone knows, where are you calling from, sir?
So I'm actually currently in Lagos, Nigeria, usually in the UK. So I kind of, divide my time between the UK and spending time with family, currently in Lagos, Nigeria, in sunny Lagos.
Is Nigeria in the World Cup this year, by the way?
I'm sorry?
Is Nigeria in the World Cup this year?
It is not, actually, unfortunately. Didn't quite make it.
Because I was going to ask, if you support Nigeria versus the UK, but I guess you have to support the Brits this year, I guess, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Good luck to them. Canada made the World Cup this year for the first time in 36 years. Like most of, so I'm supporting Canada until they get eliminated, and then I'll support Germany, which is what most people do, right? You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that will jump to Germany or jump to Brazil and see what happens. So, but let's not talk about World Cup, because what's more important is PGSync. So tell us, sir, we're going to kick off the session. I'm hitting the top of the elevator. Would love to have an opportunity for you to give us an elevator pitch, okay? So I'm going to kick off the session and see where things go, all right? Great. Good afternoon. My name is Singh. I am previously somebody who built some of the original JavaScript protocols and have become an angel investor looking at different ways of improving the internet and developing the next generation of apps. And I heard you're working on something interesting. Tolu, tell us a little bit about yourself and your startup. Go ahead.
Hello, hi. My name is Tolu. I am the founder of PGSync. PGSync is an open source software tool for moving data from Postgres to Elasticsearch. Postgres is a relational object data store, and Elasticsearch is a search and analytics engine. PGSync allows you to sort of effortlessly move data from Postgres to Elasticsearch. Keeping in mind, you shouldn't really store your primary data in Elasticsearch. It has to get there somehow. And most organizations rely on either a relational database or some external data store. The edge, I guess, is the ability to sort of transform data on the fly. PGSync allows you to sort of denormalize relational data and convert it to a document style suitable for Elasticsearch dynamically. Other tools require an intermediate data store. Other tools also require quite a lot of expertise and cost. Current market alternatives are tools like Kafka, which is one of the tools developed by the team that developed LinkedIn. It was originally developed in LinkedIn. It's probably industry standard, Kafka. I believe this is also, there's another tool called Kinesis, which is an Amazon product. This requires running your on Amazon's cloud infrastructure. So, it requires, running on proprietary software. PGSync is effortless. It requires little to no sort of development effort. The way I see PGSync, the company's startup, is to operate in a model similar to Red Hat, where it's an open source tool. It's free. You can actually use it. It took me about 6 years to develop. It took me 10 years of knowledge and expertise of what I've actually acquired over the industry for about 10 years to actually develop PGSync. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How can we help you, sir? What are you looking for? How can we help you along the way?
I feel there's been so much demand. I want to grow the company, grow the product, and do some marketing, expand the team, and just get some money to grow the company from where it is currently.
Got it. How much do you need, sir?
I'm thinking of about £500,000, and this will go towards additional, cloud infrastructure cost for actually testing the product, additional personnel on the team, as well as doing a bit more R&D to sort of expand and grow the product.
Yes. So let's dissect. Thank you for your pitch. Let's dissect this. All right. Now, it's obvious to us. Okay, it's obvious to me that you are a very successful, focused hacker on what you're doing, right? You know what I mean? You've spent 10 years in this space. You've spent 6 years developing this, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to try to unpack this a little bit, okay? Now, there are some people here that are still scratching their head. They're like, Elasticsearch, like what is this? You know, Postgres, like you know, relationship data. There are some people here that are scratching their head, right? And if you guys are, it's okay, because you know, what he's developed, right, is something that could have big implications a little bit later, right? And so there was a sentence that you used that I want to come back to. Okay, you
Right.
talked about, you know, what Elasticsearch is needed for in today's world, right?
Yes.
And how it connects, right, to a relationship database. Okay, right? Let's talk a little bit about that, right? I want you to talk about it again, because I want to make sure I have this right. But more importantly, what kind of apps are going to be powered? So when I think about what PGSync is, okay, I want to work with you to kind of just make sure we puzzle this out, because we have to make sure that people truly understand where this is going, right? You have taken a real-time approach, right? In terms of getting access to data through this interaction with Elasticsearch and relationship databases, right? So tell me a little bit about, in the app, like, it's interesting, but what apps and what industries are going to find benefit in this in 2022 and moving beyond, right? Because what I want to understand, and this is from a business standpoint, right? So I'm going to be your hustler for the next 5 minutes, okay? I'm going to be your hustler. If you would like, I'll try to pitch this back. And I know some people here are chuckling. They're like, okay, let's see how nerd Ash is and see if he can actually do something with this, but we'll get there, okay? But I want to come back to that statement that you used. I want you to define it again. But more importantly, once you define it again, let's talk about which apps in today's world, what industries, and you know what I mean? Who is going to be using this? When we think about access to information and important access quickly, right? Because that's part of what you do, right?
Yeah.
Quick access is important. There's certain apps and platforms and industries that are going to be developed leveraging your protocol. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Tell me about that. I want to know about that, sir. Go ahead.
So currently there are actually, there's a few companies using PGSync. And one of them, both of them are both actually NFT companies. What they're using it for is to sort of expose their marketplace of NFT, digital assets. So there was a question in the chat about what Elasticsearch is. You know, you would use Elasticsearch for, you know, something like, you know, a Google style front end. You know, you want to expose your information in a Google style, you know, type ahead search. You want to search for information, you don't know what you're searching for. So it's kind of solving a data warehousing problem. So you kind of want to expose part of your data in Elasticsearch. That is what Elasticsearch is. You know, that's what it's designed for. You wouldn't be able to use Postgres the same way you use Elasticsearch. So what you'd want to do is expose your data, either some part of it or all of it in Elasticsearch, and then you can actually create either a front end like Google, you know, the Google homepage, to actually provide access to information for people to search for information. So that's what Elasticsearch is used for. Like, if you want to search for something.
So my understanding of Elasticsearch, the way it's done, is when you're on Google. So for everyone that's here, we're gonna level everyone up. By the way, everyone here is going to become an Elasticsearch expert today that you're watching, because this is important. But what you mean by a Google type framework is, you know, when you start to type something in Google, right, their system goes and starts pulling information. And so when you start to search, it starts to autocomplete, and the drop down comes, and there's all these other options, correct?
Correct. So PGSync, yes. So Elasticsearch is ideal for driving that sort of backend system that does that.
Yes.
Facility.
Yes.
And PGSync sits in between and sort of allows you to sort of get your data into Elasticsearch in the first place, because you have to get the data into Elasticsearch somehow.
Yes. And so what you're able to do, right? Just so we're let's come back to the Google example, right? You know, when people are searching in, what's happening right now in some instances, what happens is that you have to go to the database, pull the information, store the information, and then present the information. And what PGSync does is it kind of drives everything real time, right? It's going directly to it. And so you kind of remove a bit of an intermediary so the results come up a little bit faster, right? It's less processing power and all these other components, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So yeah, so PGSync it sits between your relational database and your Elasticsearch.
Yes.
And sort of, it kind of ensures that you have data sync, kept in sync. That's where the sync comes from. And, kind of syncing data from Postgres to Elasticsearch and exposing it in real time.
Yes. And so let's talk about where, let's think about where this is going to be useful in the next generation apps of tomorrow, right? Where do you think this is going to be used? You brought up a couple of NFT companies, right? Tell me a little bit about, do you feel like this is going to be the standard of tomorrow, right? Is this going to be like, because, Amazon has a version and there's a couple of other people that have stuff, but are you aiming to create that, that standard? And if so, where do you see the future, companies doing this, right? And for me, the example is this, as you start to build more complex platforms, especially, for instance, in the generative AI, or just in terms of just overall intelligence, when you have to kind of go through, when we think about OpenAI and the 3 billion nodes that they need, and suddenly they have millions of users, I'm assuming PGSync is actually valuable, right? When you think about Elasticsearch and helping them try to think about stuff in real time and stuff like that. So walk me through that. Walk me through the use cases and why this is definitely going to be the platform of the future.
Yeah. So the current use case is some of these NFT companies have relational database and they store vast amounts of data, like a lot of data. And it's not feasible to sort of use a relational database to expose that data the same way as Elasticsearch is designed for. So what they've done is they need to get that data into an Elasticsearch cluster. And the reason is because with Elasticsearch, the more your data grows, you can actually scale that system horizontally. Just add more nodes to that system. But with a relational database, it's still vertically. So you just have to add more and more CPU, more resources. And at a point, you get to a limit where you cannot scale vertically. But with Elasticsearch, you can actually continue to scale. And also Elasticsearch it's ideal for the sort of marketplace this NFT companies run. It's kind of like an Amazon marketplace. You want to search for an NFT. You want to search for, it could be anything, digital art. It could be a marketplace. It could actually be products, goods, and services that you actually want to shop and purchase. So there are other tools in the market, but they require quite a bit of expertise. Like I said, Amazon has a product called Kinesis. It requires quite a bit of, it requires, it has a cost attached to it. It also requires a bit of development effort. PGSync is quite easy. It's very easy to use. You can actually be up and running in 5 minutes or less. So I think that's the edge, is the simplicity in what it does and the reduction in the cost of your tech stack.
Got it. Tell me a little bit about, you talked about the NFTs. What kind of data are they? Because I want to talk a little bit about Web3, right? Because for me, as you start to get to the point where you have a smart contract that's connected to, 50 people, 50,000 people, maybe 50 million people, and there's all these different transactions and all this other stuff occurring. Tell me a little bit about how the NFT, like you said, they're creating a lot of data, right? Tell me a little bit about what you mean by that and how your platform might potentially help drive the efficiencies in the Web3 space overall.
Yeah. So the companies that I know, they have, some of them are actually aggregating data, and they have quite a lot of data, in the form of, some of these are actually tokens, which are kind of stored in a relational database. And, from what I see, a lot of them have like billions of records that they're actually trying to, move into an Elasticsearch for further, either further aggregation or further processing. So it's just a coincidence, but the two companies that I know of that approached me, they actually happen to be NFT companies. and they've got like lots of records in the form of tokens that sits in a relational database, and they're trying to sort of move that into Elasticsearch for further processing. And some of it is actually exposed to a front-end client, so the front-end client can actually do interesting things. Like front-end client might actually be a mobile app that's doing a search. You might be trying to search for like gorilla or digital art, and it's a bit more efficient. I guess the other thing with using PGSync was it was simpler for them than the alternatives. It was simpler to just pick up and actually start using, rather than invest in time, effort, money into other solutions that require additional development effort.
Understood. Because I want to kind of think about where the big picture around this is going, because when we think about the fintech space, the Web3 space, you do have situations where they have billions of records, right? And it seems to me that, they say software is taking over the world. The reason why that's happening is just the sheer amount of data that's happening, right? And would it be safe to say that, in 5 years or 10 years, a lot of the fintech firms, Web3 firms, are going to have to use a platform like yours or Amazon? Is that fair to say?
I guess one thing I would say is the comparison that, in terms of the competition, PGSync is quite focused in terms of technology. It's dealing with two data sources, and data stores, which is Postgres and Elasticsearch. The market alternatives are quite, they're not so focused. You can actually use it with different data sources, be it MongoDB or Oracle database or MySQL data source. So PGSync is quite focused in terms of what it does. It does what it does very well. The alternatives, that's why they require a bit more expertise, because there's things you need to know. You need to understand how to use them. You need to have the expertise to develop for them. To give you an example, one of the old competing products is Kafka. I've had recruiters, reach out to me to say, are you a Kafka developer? Do you have expertise developing Kafka? Now, using a product is one thing. Then you need to hire someone, software engineer and probably an infrastructure engineer to maintain and develop what you actually develop on top of these tools to get the outcome you desire.
Yes. And so you've designed it as such. No, I understand that. Because I'm trying to I want to make sure that we figure out where this is going, right? Because when we think about from an investor standpoint, right, I'm like, where is that product market fit, right? Because you got the two NFT companies, and I'm wondering, where in 5 years it's going to be, because we have to stake the claim, right? Obviously Elasticsearch is here to say, Postgres, I mean, the frameworks are here to stay. That's moving, but when we think about growth, because that's where you want, right? Where do you see that happening? Where do you see this as kind of that essential tool, right?
I guess when I think about in 5 years, I kind of feel, when I look at the competing products, I look at what they actually, the expertise they require and the cost associated with them. PGSync is a no-code, essentially it's a no-code product. Some of the techniques used are quite, there's a lot of, intellectual property there, even though it's open source product now. I kind of feel this approach, it's probably something that's kind of needed in the market. So I think it's probably still going to be around in terms of, doing things. I think no other tool kind of does things this way PGSync does. Like, there's just no tool on the market that, tries to do this, because it's actually quite hard. So I feel, the approach kind of on the lines, when you solve a very difficult problem, you kind of simplify kind of other problems. And the fact that, PGSync solves a very complex problem means your tech stack is going to be quite lean and quite simple, quite simplified tech stack. You don't need additional development on top of what it already does.
Yes. And my question to you, because again, it's all about forward looking, right? Because you integrate, you're in an open source model, and then obviously you can have like a freemium play on that, right? People can use all the elements for free, but if they need to get more defined access, they can pay for it. I still want to figure out kind of where this goes, because you've spent 6 years on this, and part of what I'm seeing and hearing here is that you've identified the pipes, right? Like when I think about what you're doing, you know, what investors love to listen to is that who are the people that are kind of creating the pipes, right, to an infrastructure. And you're doing that. Do you see yourself in the future building these types of nodes to help, you know, and you just said it now, right, to simplify, right, the tech stack, right? What does that mean? You know, when you think about simplifying the tech stack, for those of us that have gone and, you know, I used to be a LAMP tech stack coder, PHP back in the day, right? Before I, you know, I'm doing what I'm doing now. And yeah, the stuff does get complicated, right? And so when we think about what you're doing, because, you know, you have your tech stack basically to kind of manage your data, right? How data flows, and you've been able to create this little applet of sorts that connects a couple of pieces, and suddenly their tech stack is more lean. How much more lean is their tech stack?
Compared to Kafka, significantly leaner. Kafka itself is a data store, so it's its own entity. So it stores the data. So you have your Postgres, you have Kafka, and there's another component called Zookeeper.
Yes.
So there's a lot of moving parts, and those moving parts require expertise. Then to get data out of Kafka into Elasticsearch requires, you know, hiring a developer to actually do something. And if you want to do it again to a different data store, you know, it's additional development.
But
sorry.
Yeah. No. I want to come back to kind of your magic, who you are, and where you're going with this, right? You know, you talk about you've identified a problem in the market on an industry that is growing and growing very quickly too, right? Do you know what I mean? What you've developed can be integrated, and the number of databases that are being turned on and the number of databases that have billions of records continues to grow, right? And so, you know, I'm thinking about is this something that you can discover for other things? Because for me, it's like, okay, you're doing all this stuff and people are going to use it, Liza, to get on board, but they also want to lean up their tech stack, right? They want to become more efficient overall, right? Because there's a cost associated with it. Amazon has built these models and they're structured in a certain way to get people more on board, use more databases, more transfer, and what happens, right? Amazon is pay per use. But if they build applets that require a lot more usage, that's why they make so much money. Is that correct? Does that make sense? Yeah, and what you've done is you've looked at it and said, hey, you don't actually need this. This is nonsense. This is just another way for Amazon to make more money. There's a cheaper, faster, you know, quicker way to kind of get on board. And here's one. Now, the question is can you do it again? Can you do it again? Can you do it again? If you had $5 million and you had the right team and you're going there and you're like, okay, here's another area, right? And suddenly you become the superhero, right, of tech stacks, right? You know, does that make sense? Yeah, where do you go, right? Are you that person that's going to be looking, right? And so coming back to efficiencies, right? Amazon versus you, where you said you can lean up the tech stack. How much of an improvement is it? 20%, 30%, 40%? Like, do you know what I mean? Are you the tech stack hero? Is that who you are? Are you a tech stack hero? Right? People are like, yeah, this is what I want to do. If I'm going to do it, I should do it this way. This is the lean, you know, the lean tech stack platform starting with this, and then suddenly you kind of move it out. Tell me more about that.
I mean, I think in terms of where this goes, I mean, I think there's other applications of this. I mean, I think we can sort of expand it. You know, right now, like I said, it's focused on one data source and one data sink. I think it's feasible to sort of expand this to other data sources, you know, be it, you know, databases like Oracle, MySQL, Microsoft, you know, IBM, WebSphere. And then it's also feasible to sort of expand it to other data sinks, you know, things like other document style databases like, you know, MongoDB, or, you know, or even just an S3. I mean, you just want to export data to a different location. So I think it can sort of expand in terms of capability, in terms of what the other tools does. Maybe I would say that's the vision eventually, to be able to compete with those other tools. And I guess it would be doing it in a different way, because it'd still be a lean middleware. It wouldn't be a heavy middleware. So we're doing things in a different way.
Because when I look at you, I'm thinking about what you've built. You've invested 6 years. If you were to do it again, it wouldn't take 6 years, obviously. There's a lot of learning and thought process. There's a methodology. There's a secret sauce. Once you have a wheelbase of a car, right? You can, you can build a Model 3, you can build a Model Y, right? You can build a Model S, you can build a Model X. The wheelbase is the same. And so just to kind of streamline this, because I want you to be able to go to the market as the superhero, right? And in order to be a superhero, you need a villain, and the villain needs to be doing something bad, right? Okay. And that's kind of how I see this happening, right? When they come to you, PGSync might be the first product, but the overall perspective around this is, if I am a developer, I want to go and think about the leanest tech stack that's going to be able to drive results and make me a superhero and save money, save energy, remove the headache, and be a champion in my organization. And they're doing it based on what you're building. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I see things go, right? You're like the king of, there's lots of different tech stacks out there. I'm not saying you're going to do it for everyone, but when it comes down to kind of database access, right? Real-time database access, it's a very interesting spot to play in, right? Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It does.
And that's something you can grow on and build on and make it happen, right? So coming back to a hard question is around, when we think about your ability and what PGSync can do, how much more can we lean up the tech stack? Right now it's fat and heavy, okay? Amazon's is fat and heavy. When we use yours, what do we do? How much leaner are we doing here? Are we doing 5%, 50%? What are we doing? What kind of weight loss are we got here on this?
I would say more than 50%, certainly. I would say it's probably about, in terms of the moving parts, yes, I would say more than 50%. For sure.
Now coming back to this, now I'm getting into hustler mode. Okay, so I might ask you some questions that might sound not too technical, but suppose I have to deliver a user interface that has Elasticsearch. How much would I, and I have 1 billion records. I'm a Web3 guy, right? Everyone talks about being a blockchain guy, and I got tokens and all this stuff. Let's stay in the Web3 space, okay? Just for fun, okay? If I'm using Amazon versus you, tell me about the price difference, because you said 50%, okay? If I'm a typical Web3 company that's tokenized and I'm doing, 500 million records and stuff like that, what's the cost difference on a monthly basis that we would have, right? What would it cost on Amazon versus you? Give me some numbers. I need to chew on something. You got to give me some financial numbers, because hustlers talk numbers, right? So tell me about that.
I'm probably going to have to do some research in terms of the cost of using some of the services on AWS. But in terms of the PGSync, the cost would be zero. You wouldn't be hiring a developer. I mean, an average developer in the US probably earns about, I don't know, $120,000. That cost with PGSync would be zero, because you would not be developing on top. You wouldn't have additional development cost on top of that. You probably need to hire an infrastructure engineer. We can probably assume, you have another $120,000 at least. With PGSync, again, the cost is just zero, because it's that chunk, that layer just goes away, and it's a service. It's one of the AWS services that you need to pay for. It's kind of like so it's it adds up, and it's quite expensive. In terms of the cost of it, the service itself, Kinesis, I'm not quite sure. I know that there's another product which is free but requires quite a bit of, the learning curve is huge. For Kafka, the learning curve is quite steep. Like I said, I think PGSync adds zero. It's a zero cost in terms of, because it's a no code solution. You don't actually have to write any code. Just some
save all that. All right, I'm going to give it a shot. Would you like me to pitch your idea now?
I would love you to pitch.
So we're going to kind of flip this on its head, and I do appreciate. I know there's a couple of lessons to be learned today. I know that you're looking for 500K, okay?
Correct.
And
Yes.
I'm going to try to paint a picture and drive the elements and see where things go, right? So I'll try to not geek it out too much. Okay, right? So Postgres relationship databases and Elasticsearch, I'm going to assume people know that now. Okay,
Yeah.
right? So we're going to play around, but I want to come back to kind of what you're doing, how you're implementing this, and where do you see this going? Okay, right? So I'll hand it over to you, sir. You introduce yourself, and I'm going to pitch the holding company of PGSync, by the way. Okay, does that make sense? Because you're going to
Yes.
have other products here, okay, as part of my pitch, right? So you know what I mean? We might consider changing the holding company name in terms of what your bigger picture is, right? But we'll use PGSync as it goes. And you've got a lot of questions in the chat, by the way, but you can answer them after the session. Okay,
Yeah.
let's focus you and me right now, and we'll see where this goes. All right, sir. Over to you. Go ahead.
Hello, hi. My name is Tolu. I own one of the largest NFT marketplaces in the world. I've heard about your product PGSync. Can you tell me more about it, please?
Thank you very much. My name is Singh, and I'm part of the PGSync team. As you know, in the NFT space, in the blockchain space, the Web3 space, we're reaching that point where we are storing millions, billions of records, right? And what I've discovered is the systems integrators, the Amazon Web Services of the world, are actually kind of taking advantage of you guys right now. Because what they do is, you have your database and you have your search elements, and then they ask you to kind of put these storage clusters in, and suddenly you jack up your usage and you need a specific person to build all these components out. And that's how AWS and some of these platforms are making a lot of money. Now, I've been a developer for the last 20 years, and I was looking at this and I'm like, surely there has to be a better way. And so what we did is our first product was called PGSync. And what we're able to do is that you have your Elasticsearch and your relationship database. We just have a very simple element that connects the two and can do this all in real time without the use of an external person that's going to be developing, an external developer, and all of that excess server costs. And what we've discovered is that it works, people love it, and not only that, it transforms your tech stack to save a lot of time, energy, and money, and you can go focus on what you need to do, and that is deliver great products and give access to your customers. So we are developing this. It's ready to go. We've had the right development in place, but we also see ourselves as a company that can continue to do this for other areas. And we've identified other areas where some of the big players are just creating a lot of waste. We are looking for $500,000 to scale our current PGSync platform from an open source freemium model, get that to the market, and then also allow us to build some other amazing tools and protocols to be that next generation lean stack platform that's going to transform the next generation of apps to come. I want to talk to you a little bit more about this, and I'll show you the compare and contrast about us versus Amazon over a coffee. Thank you.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I want to invest already.
Okay. Does that make sense though? Do you know what I tried to do there? Right? I want to extract I touched on your points, but I came back to the problem statement, and I want to, you know what I mean? Who you are. You know what I mean? You are a genius. You've spent time on this. You know it works. We need to now let the world understand it, and then let you go back to what you do. You need to make sure PGSync is profitable, and then you go back to work and you do the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, because that's what you're good at. Does that make sense? You're like a Steve Wozniak. That's what you are, right? Which is amazing. You're super smart. You have all those, I'm sure your parents are very proud of you and stuff like that, right? But I want to make sure that comes together, and who you are as a bigger company is important. Okay? Right? Let's package that out right and know that you are a necessity, right? And I painted the villain. I painted the villain, but I also talked about the fact that this is here to stay, right? You know, and that's what we want from you, right? Because we've got to, it's just a packaging thing, you know. It's kind of, you have this diamond, we just got to polish a little bit, let them know, and then let you go dig for more diamonds, because that's what you're amazing at, right? And do it faster, hopefully not 6 years. You know what I mean? You can discover this and suddenly you have a suite of tools, right, that are going to transform. And then what happens is these big companies are going to be like, everyone knows that we're ripping them off, right? We might as well just acquire this guy. Do you know what I mean? And that's what happened with Red Hat, correct?
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking of, the Red Hat model, where
right.
Right.
But what happened was they got so good and all these other things, and they're like, we might as well just acquire them because everyone knows that we're ripping people off, right? Is that fair? Right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
You can do the same stuff in Linux, and we don't have all this bloatware that's going around, right? And that's your journey, right? And you come to the market with the fierceness and drive around that, right? Amazon and these people are wronging the community, and that's where you come in, right? And there has to be that element of conviction and drive, right? And that's kind of where I see this going. Was that helpful today? Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very sort of very helpful. A lot to chew on and a lot to digest as well.
Good. Excellent. Well, you know, it's always our pleasure. Okay. And thank you for sharing, right? I think there was a lot of great learnings around this. And now everyone that's watching, you know, when they type in Google and this information comes in, they can impress their friends because they know what Elasticsearch is now. Okay. So I think the community benefited a little bit today from some of the learnings, but more importantly, we're really excited about where this is going. Let's see where this goes, because you're on the beginning of a beautiful journey, and it'll be great to see where this business takes you. All right. So thank you very much for your time. And Christine.